Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Co-Creating with AI. I'm Martin, and with me is Rasmus. How are you today, Rasmus?
Pretty good. A little bit tired. We had too active a weekend. I think we need to respect the weekend as rest time a little bit more. But pretty good. Excited to chat today. How are you?
I'm good. We had the first snow today. I took a drive, and it's really beautiful, the landscape now with a bit of snow on top, and yeah, energized for the day.
Great. So today, right? What do you want to talk about?
I think we should talk about how to deal as an entrepreneur, how to deal with the fast-paced nature of the AI industry. Uh, How do you relate to that, and what strategies work when everything is moving so fast that you can't stand still?
Yeah, I mean, we touched upon that last week a little bit, right? Uh, in terms of all the new releases from OpenAI and all the companies they potentially, let's see, maybe we were bit pessimistic, but like all the companies they potentially rug pull and make irrelevant.
Yeah.
And also learnings. I think I shared a couple of learnings from Multiply, things we've spent time on that maybe aren't as relevant now. So I think the first like general principle is, you can't just focus on now when building AI powered products because things are moving so fast. You need to have a view of the future of where the kind of infrastructure layer is moving. What capabilities are likely to just be handed to you, because if you try to build them yourself, you're essentially competing with OpenAI, etc., which
Mm,
is a tough ask to do,
yeah.
I'd say. So I think that's just my general view is like you need to look at the future. And at the same time, of course, as an entrepreneur, most things are about now, right? Your customers, their problems, solving them,
Mm,
taking that one step at a time, not being lost in the future. But now you really need to have like a view of, I think, especially what not to do and also what will be handed to you. Because, you can look at it as a gift, like 1 year from now, will we have a hundred or a million K token windows? Well, then maybe you shouldn't, optimize for that. Maybe a year from now, will you have, you know, the cost being slashed another magnitude? Maybe you shouldn't focus on, cost optimization in terms of reducing tokens,
mm,
latency and speed of generation, right? So GPT-4 Turbo, like I don't know if it's 10x against GPT-4. We haven't like properly measured it, but maybe but like I at least feel that the speed of generation will not be kind of a sustainable kind of unique selling point because
mm,
that will be available for everyone.
yes.
So yeah, that's kind of my general frame, I think, of how to approach it, and then we can of course dive into the details of that, like where is the future going and what are sustainable USPs. But
Mm.
how do you view it? Do you think like similarly, or do you have any nuance there?
No, that's exactly how I think about it too. That you should um, trust that cost goes down, speed goes up, capacity for more data goes up. It's like gravity. Like you can trust that. So just like you said, you shouldn't invest in it yourself. Don't push the stone down; it will fall by itself.
Yeah,
And don't invest in pushing it down. And and so and also as an entrepreneur, since I with what I'm building always have time to market, I can trust by the time I get there, AI will be cheaper and faster. And that's also a way to build something that is future proof. If you build something which is actually not possible to launch at the moment because it requires too much speed, too much compute, it's too expensive to run, then it will be unique when exactly when if it's ready to be launched, when speed is high enough or cost is low enough. Or so that's a way to of future proofing what to do.
yeah, that's actually interesting. At the same time, of course, that could create a dependency, right? In
Yeah.
terms of like when that happens.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really agree with you, especially if it's like what I want to build is requires that sort of step up in speed or
Mm,
decrease in cost. But even before that, with what has now, what I'm building has value, even if it's not,
mm,
as amazing as I imagine it to be in the future. But yeah, I agree. I agree.
mm,
If it's something like that, just that many won't bet on now because the speed or cost isn't where it needs to be, then that's
mm.
definitely like a way of approaching it.
And then the other way, the other aspect is that some things can't be bought for money, which is like the the idea of a UI paradigm, or the idea of a service, like and you can if you have enough money, you can iterate coming up with new ideas. But if you have something to bet on, which is more like a UI design kind of thing, then building a UI prototype for something new is probably something you can do on a small team with a very small budget. And you don't have like to build implement a prototype for a new UI paradigm, which just sits on top of the entire mass of innovation that goes on. Then you can build something that is completely unique. And I think that's also like a worthwhile bet to do. And so um, sort of to zig when others zag, just go in the other direction in some important aspect of what you're doing. And as an AI industry, it's going so fast because it's extremely aligned. Everybody is working in the exact same decision direction with the same evals. Like everybody's evaluating their AI models using the same libraries and so on. So there's like ripe opportunity to do something that is not covered by the standard benchmark that everyone else is using.
Yeah, and I think that's like I think where we'll focus down today. But before we kind of focus in on UI, I think what else? We talked about speed and cost, right? And then we said
Hmm.
capacity a bit, sort of
Yeah, like
vaguely.
yeah.
So like for me, like when I like we actually had an on-site with the team and we were like, mapping this out in terms of like, hey, what is likely to happen and what shouldn't we, build ourselves, which I think is very important to sort of know as a startup.
Yeah.
Uh, and apart from like cost going down, speed going up, context window size going up, so you can give more information to the AI, whether it's directly in the prompt or via retrieval, like basically putting it in a vector database and allowing the AI to search it. Then I also think like the intelligence of the systems is likely to go up. We haven't really seen a step up since GPT-4 in reasoning capability. You could argue that Claude has a better literary capacity. So there are like niches where maybe specific intelligence will like is definitely like increasing. But I would still bet on like intelligence to go up. That's the whole bet
Mm,
of like OpenAI, and that's been true so far, right? And they are working on GPT-5, is at least what people say. And
mm,
then like capabilities, both in terms of modalities, like so now we have text, image, voice really getting there. Video, I think, is going to be something that's widely available via API, video generation, and of course video to text, etc. Uh, and then code is already there, so that's maybe text with one specific format of it, and with the code interpreter in the assistants and the GPTs that OpenAI provides. It can execute Python code for you in order to solve a problem, and then of course the functions that it can actually utilize any function that you give it access to in order to solve the
mm,
task at hand. So I think like across all those dimensions, uh, it is quite likely that the future will continue in that direction.
mm,
And that, of course, at least from my perspective, means that yeah, I'm not going to compete with OpenAI in building those and the other kind of big players, Google, etc. Is there anything like I missed there, and how do you relate that to what actually is worth while investing in as an entrepreneur within this space.
No, I think that's a very very good summary that covers all of it. And I also look at what in terms of what not to build. Of course, I look at what all the other startups are building, like not only OpenAI, but what where there's a very crowded space. Like there's at least 25 startups now building uh, speech to text and text to speech, like 25 each. So that's obviously a very crowded niche, and it's not like it's a niche where you definitely let those people compete with each other and just buy the whatever is the top service. If you need speech to text, then buy it rather than build it. And so not looking only at the OpenAI and the big companies, but also like what all other startups are doing is worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree. And if we would generalize that today, right, when we just pre-chatted a bit,
Mm,
like like we both landed on UI, right? UI UX. So very like if you look at it as like, on the top of a pyramid, right? We have the foundation. We have, of course, before that we have like all the cloud providers and all the devices and all the operating systems, right? And then we have these foundational mods on AI, and then we have the ways that they are provided to you, either directly from the kind of foundational model providers like OpenAI, or with infrastructure layer in between.
mm,
So that sort of moves where I see at least the most opportunity is at the top of the pyramid, which is close to the user, and and then the question becomes, what type of, just relating to what you just said, like
mm,
what is the top of the pyramid, that the way that everyone is approaching it now? Like if we look at the startups out there,
mm,
how are they approaching UI UX in this new landscape?
mm. And yeah, I think um, one way of sorry, I think you have to repeat your question. I
No, I
zoned
meant,
out.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I meant that, if you would just like categorize how you look at the startups out there that
yeah,
are building applications for end
yes.
users,
Mm,
what what do they have in common, and what does that tell us about where maybe not to focus, at least if we
mm.
think from our perspective, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I think like one classification I do naturally is the startup that just build thin wrappers on top of whatever is the latest API that comes out, and and then the other companies that the other kind of startup that build something that is uniquely their own investment coming from an original idea. And I think both have merit. I think the companies that build a thin wrapper on existing AIs, they are also a huge driver of innovation. That they provide something that the industry needs, like to see for everything, every new capability that is exposed by new AI model. What can we do with that? That there is such a flurry of innovation in going on in like making the most out of the latest innovation is actually hugely valuable. It's not something for me to be in that space of just like do a quick flip on something like a small idea. I want to invest for the long term, but on the other hand, like I really love that to see everything nice that comes out when there's a new opportunity. But um, when I was sort of zoning out right now, I thought about the company we talked about last episode, Find.com, how what they have built is actually straight up an assistant. Like the UI is exactly like just like an assistant, but they are not pulled by OpenAI's latest release because they have such a huge amount of data available for the assistant. They have like 200,000 open source project documentations indexed with hundreds of pages in each project. So, and that's like millions of pages they have made available for their assistant. So another way of creating uniqueness is to do exactly what OpenAI is doing with their GPTs, but just put in more data or more advanced functionality than a GPT ever will have available.
Yeah, I think that's actually like one way of, and this is maybe not where we're focusing the most, you and I, but like that's like a niche approach for me. That's like, and that's where I think maybe thin wrapper or not. I mean, of course, the thinner the wrapper, the more easy it is for others to launch it, and the more competition you're going to have, right? And maybe the like lower lifespan your product is going to have. But like for me, that's a very good example of a product going all in on a niche, developers in this case, and a problem they have, which is, figuring out how to build something and then having an assistant that is, the best at documentations. They can find the right, I guess, library that they want to use and understand it and implement it and work with it the quickest. And there's others, with across industries. There's like the Copilot for legal, etc. Right, where you know, yeah, I mean the niche of the data set and the capability set can really, still provide value. So I think that's like one category that is, definitely relevant, even going forward. But other than that, how would you like? So that's like one bucket. Do you like where and where there is opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you find something where the market isn't saturated. And what else do you see? Like what are other buckets of opportunity?
I think to create something unique within UI paradigms, to really invest in UI is really a ripe opportunity, because then if you build something that has a very high user value on the front end, then the rest of the industry is going to build the back end for you. It's going to, your front end, if it's flexible enough, providing enough value for the user and uniqueness, then um, and an extremely smooth user experience, then the back end is going to be the rest of the AI industry for your startup, and you're going to be able to cherry pick whatever you need to keep increasing your user value while also investing in the smoothness of your UI. So that's for me, it's a really rich opportunity to strive for.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're both focusing, right? And
Mm,
And I think like just to sort of, I mean, maybe put a frame, at least in my mind, we were talking about kind of vertical niches now, legal, coding, etc., right? With niche use cases for niche people, etc.
mm,
And then you have kind of vertical opportunities. And there I really believe that, still talking top of the pyramid, right? But if we cut it the other way, there's the horizontal opportunities. So if I would look at what's out there and what's provided by, OpenAI and others, it's
mm,
the chat interface, right?
mm,
And the chat interface is, I think, and with voice coming into it as well, is great interface for reactive kind of tasks. So that is, I want this now, I'll let it do it. Or I have, I set up a specific assistant for something that, I maybe want to do more than once, and then I ask it for it and it can do it. But if we go from reactive to proactive, and the step in between there that we're focusing on with Multiply is, as I've said before, like it's workflows, right? It's something you want to do more than once and that
mm.
has some complexity and you want to use together as a team. So if I would look at like chat, it's single player reactive. And next step along that line is, or maybe those two lines, is like multiplayer and, and, reusable in a sense where
Yeah,
you have like workflows that are not just like a one-off instruction, but that are like more complex setups that you want to do across an organization because organizations have a lot of like complex workflows. And then the step after that, which we're working towards, is like a very proactive
mm,
UI that sort of doesn't wait for you to tell it what you want, but actually proactively comes up with things that have value for you, whether
yeah,
that's creating content or providing insights or news or whatever. So I
mm,
think that's at least like it's single player to multiplayer for me is like one big thing. And then on the UI side, it's really the journey from reactive one-off tasks to proactive, already did it for you kind of tasks. And then the
Yeah.
UI question is around that, right? And I don't think the chat is the UI, necessarily for at least for as we move along that line. Uh, how do you think about it? Is that like
Yeah, that's definitely one dimension to or rather two dimensions with the single player versus multiplayer and the reactive versus proactive. And if you take that to then there's there at the far end of both, it's also the something that is completely unexplored so far in the industry, which is AIs talking to AIs, like a AI multiplayer scenario where multiple AIs, like we have the agent frameworks where you spin up multiple agents that talk to each other within a sandbox, which have proven to in some cases produce better results than a single agent just thinking by itself. But what we haven't seen so far is sort of my proactive agent AI talking to your proactive agent AI, and they are having a conversation with each other, each with their own unique perspectives, and then coming up with something where they get back to us like individually with their results of their interaction.
yeah, it's like
And
proactively multiplayer, but all of that is like AI and then
yeah,
pulling into the loop, right?
yeah,
The
exactly.
linear.
So that's something that we haven't seen any innovation in so far. It's a really old concept. When I was in the university in the 90s, 94 to 99, then we had a course in agent frameworks, like agents talking to agents. And then what they were doing, where we had examples like um, negotiating prices for something that they would buy and sell, which is actually what has been going on for a couple of decades inside Google Ads ad engine, where you can say that you have an agent working for you to negotiate the best prices for your ads that you want to display. But um, but here, like there, or in the future rather, there's an opportunity where I think that we're going to see more and more AIs actually talking to each other, maybe with natural language, so we can understand what they're saying for transparency and explainability, and then seeing the results of those interactions play out in the real world.
Yeah, and I think like I agree, and I think one aspect is, I guess, the name of this podcast, right? Co-creating with AI, and I feel that's also like maybe one direction of UI, and it sort of goes maybe hand in hand with the proactiveness. But I mean, if we just look inside Multiply, one reason that our um, customers appreciate us is that it's not like just chat, produce this for me, and then comment to get it edited for you. And then, it's not really what I want. And like, okay, then I copy paste it somewhere else. And then maybe I copy paste it back and say, hey, make this more, whatever. But actually UI where me and the AI is working side by side, just like you and I would in a Google Doc if we're, trying to write a press release collaboratively, and we can edit at the same time and give suggestions, etc. So I think that's also like one line of it where I think, I mean, chat is one way of co-creating with AI, right? But I really think there is in that um, in that you like in this new UI paradigm of intent based, as we talked about in the previous episode, like you actually express your intent to the computer and it gives you something back. I still think there's a lot of innovation that's going to be beyond chat, and for those who find those sustainable kind of appreciated or unique appreciated UI as in this, there's defensibility, because that's not like where the foundational layer will is likely to move. Like I highly doubt that OpenAI will build their whole productivity suite. I mean, probably Microsoft will keep innovating on theirs, powered by OpenAI, right? But I'm not, maybe Microsoft isn't, the biggest UI competitor, even though they're amazing in other ways.
No,
Uh,
and not OpenAI either. Like will not win any design prizes on the UI side anytime soon, because they are actually the experts of the thin wrapper around their own APIs. They build something that is very rudimentary. Like it's very useful, extremely useful, but the user value mostly comes from the back end, and their UI is like a thin wrapper just providing enough functionality to prove the value of their backend technology.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I had lunch with an old friend slash colleague of mine who's a very, very good designer, and who's, of course, has ever run exploring AI. And my kind of pitch to him was like, there is still no like design system for AI. There's like still no like clearly like understood, uh, you know, sorry, clear understanding of the UI paradigm, and what different ways you can provide different capabilities. Whereas we do have that in the Web 2.0 era. We really have that. There are like really, they even ready-made design systems that provide you all the drop downs, etc., etc. But for this new paradigm, I really think that a lot of the most amazing like new products, the new kind of billion-dollar companies will really be UI innovations. But we'll see. And of course, across the stack there will be, I mean, huge opportunities, right, for those who pursue them. But like for most startups, I really think that if you can figure out either like a niche that you can provide value in combination, maybe, or horizontally with like so vertical niche or horizontal niche as we discussed, and then figuring out really the UI for that that makes that like so smooth, and especially if that takes user along these lines that we discussed, being able to work together with others, together with the AI, and the AI being proactive. Then I really think there's like, and of course that's a big ask, but I really think like you can get really far by just the UI UX of it, actually.
Yeah. And to round off, because I think it's time to round off. But what
Yeah.
I another whole universe of opportunity exists in along the lines of there's another thing you can turn upside down in AI development, which is that every AI service being launched now it has the screen as a window where me as a human, I'm in the classical world and the AI is on the other side, and we build a UI into the world of the AI, which I use from the classical world, and then to turn that upside down or inside out, so to build an AI that has uh, an interface to the classical world, where the AI is driving the interaction, is clicking the buttons and interacting with the classical world, like booking hotel rooms through hotels.com and putting up job ads on Upwork. And that's also like a completely like different approach that has not been explored in depth at all so far.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fun to actually talk about the way AR is moving in robotics in another episode, and on top, like on this topic, but not today. I think this has been fun, Martin, and
Yes.
yeah, I mean, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, Rasmus, and thank you to the listener for being with us all the way to the end of this episode. And next time we'll talk about another aspect of co-creating with AI. Thank you so much.